This episode of ChatGPD was made possible by the hard work and creativity of our production team. A huge thank you to Emily Young, Chris Sang, and Alakia Chandran for their expert production, editing, and behind-the-scenes magic that brings each conversation to life. We also want to thank Sarah Topa and the IMS for their support in helping us share ideas, stories, and resources that empower our grad students at every stage of their journey. Welcome to another episode of ChatGPD, our podcast on careers in biomedical sciences. I'm Pamela Plant, and today I am here with our guest, Antoinette Bugyei-Twum. Welcome, Antoinette.
Thank you, Pam, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you. Antoinette is an associate at the law firm Borden Ladner Gervais in Ottawa, and she's part of the intellectual property group, and she's here to enlighten us on this career. So Antoinette, can we start by you just describing on a very high level, what is an intellectual property agent?
Okay, that's a great question. So my role, let's start off by saying this. So there are various forms of intellectual property, or IP as we call it. So there's copyright, trademarks. I work mainly on patents. And so what I generally do is help innovators protect their inventions. And I do so by helping draft patent applications that we submit to the patent office. There they examine the application, and there's a bit of a back and forth between the patent office about whether or not what we've submitted is new, useful, and unobvious. And then if it is, then we get a patent, and a patent is essentially a legal document that sort of sets out how the invention works. And at the end of that document, we have what we call claims, and that claim sort of sets out the boundaries of your invention and the protection that it guarantees you.
So I can intuit how you would leverage your experience as a PhD student in IMS. You have a very molecular, biochemical, cell biology background. But could you explain to me how you leverage that? Like, how does your role use your training in IMS? And also just tell us about your training in IMS and your journey from IMS to where you currently are.
Oh, wow. So I mean, as you know, Pam, I started off here in Toronto in biochemistry. I did my master's there, and then afterwards I transitioned to my PhD in IMS based at St. Michael's. And my PhD really focused on investigating cell signaling pathways, identifying molecules that we can interrogate to sort of help solve this issue that we were seeing in the clinic. So a lot of diabetic patients were presenting with metabolic syndrome, or let's say they were presenting with several issues, and we were trying to find new ways or new molecules that we can identify and perhaps interrogate to help improve their whatever symptoms they may be having. So I worked a lot on organ fibrosis and focused on TGF-beta signaling pathway. That was like my bread and butter during my PhD. How that actually translated into patent law, it's almost like something that I never would have imagined or thought of, because yes, I have a particular skill set. I have a very detailed knowledge of something very specific. And here I am now working in a role where I'm chatting with inventors, and they could be researchers such as yourself. They could be biotech or pharma companies, and they have their inventions. And I think my training from IMS really helps me to speak their language. When they disclose their invention, I can understand what it is that they're saying. And I can distill complex information that they're sharing with me into simple yet accurate information that we can capture into in our patent applications. So I think that my training helped me in many ways, but obviously the biggest part is actually the scientific knowledge that I've gained along the way.
And your ability to communicate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that would be something very specific that you offer in the law firm that other, patent lawyers do not have. They would not have that knowledge, that breadth, and that ability to speak this very specific language that you are able to speak.
Yeah, I think depending on the side of the IP, I guess IP world that you sit in. So I have colleagues who are engineers and also lawyers by training, colleagues who are chemists by training, um, colleagues who are biochemists or molecular biologists by training. So depending on the technology that's coming in, obviously you'll go to the person that has the best technical background to assist with that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, Antoinette, how did you delve into this world? When did you discover it? How did you discover it? When did you know it was right for you? Can you walk us through that?
Oh my gosh. So this is so incredible because if you had told me back when I started undergrad that I would be working at a law firm, I would have said to you, no way. Like, what? No, I'm a scientist. I want to become a scientist. I'm not a lawyer. And a law firm was the last thing on my mind. So it all really started off in my master's. I had this incredible supervisor and environment where we were really driven to find, well, we were really studying protein structure and function. That was the goal, but we had like therapeutic applications to our goal. So we had designed a conformation specific antibody. And in the lab, my role, I was testing out to see, okay, can this antibody do what we think it can do? So can it act, for example, as a diagnostic tool to identify patients who have, or can it identify samples that have, for example, a particular misfolded form of a protein?
Mm-hmm.
And I was working in the lab very late. Long hours, often sleeping in my supervisor's office. And we found this like incredible thing that the antibody can actually, it can be used as a diagnostic tool. It can also be used to slow down the aggregation of that particular protein. So my supervisor said, okay, why don't we go to the tech transfer office and speak to them about this. Let's see if there's a way we can commercialize this. And that was actually like my first introduction into patents or IP. So we had, obviously the tech transfer office did the great work of introducing us with a firm and a registered Canadian patent agent. And that agent was one that assisted us with getting a patent. And I thought, ooh, that agent actually was working for a law firm. She's a partner at a law firm, and she had a PhD, and she had a very similar background as myself. And I thought, oh, that's incredible. Like, she's a scientist and a lawyer in a sense. And I didn't think that was possible, like the merging of both worlds. So that was like my first introduction. And I kept that in mind throughout my training. And I kind of always kept circling back to it. And yeah, that's how I landed.
And when you were doing your PhD, this was scratching in the back of your mind. When you finished, what were the steps that led you to your current role? Like, did you connect immediately with the law firm? Did they have an opening that you kind of were looking at in the background? Or was it a chance meeting with somebody in the law firm? Like, what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, when I was finishing up my PhD, so one thing I would say is that I wish I had done this sooner. I wish I had gone out there and met people in different roles. So I waited till the tail end of my training to start networking and meeting people. So I did a lot of that. I started with LinkedIn. I looked at past IMS graduates or even just U of T graduates who are in interesting careers. And I pinged them and I said, hey, would you like to have a coffee with me? I'm finishing up my PhD and I'm curious about your role. And a lot of people were receptive. I've met with a ton of people from different worlds. And I would say this, I had a partner at the time and he knew very much, like my training and my interest in intellectual property. And he was in law school at the time.
Perfect.
So he had met someone, a lawyer and also a patent agent, and he said to him, "Oh my goodness, my partner is interested, and you should definitely talk to her." So we set up a meeting. We had a 1 hour Zoom chat, and he sort of walked me through his day to day, how he got to the role. So he was a lawyer by training, wasn't a PhD like myself, but he said something to me that kind of stuck. He said, "Listen, if you really want to learn about the role, I would suggest you join our professional organization or professional body. It's called IPIC, the Intellectual Property Institute of Canada."
Okay.
So I joined IPIC for a nominal fee. You can sign up
And
as a
anyone
student.
can sign up as a student.
That's right.
MSc, PhD.
Absolutely, for a nominal
Fantastic.
fee. And they had this great, they had a mentorship program at the time. So I was
Fabulous.
set up with a mentor who happened to have a similar background as myself. She was a PhD partner at the firm. And she, again, was insightful. Like, I learned so much from her. I joined community. So they have a women in IP networking group. I attended those, and I just met people in the field, and I learned what they did. And I'm like, I want to do that. And actually, it was through this networking that I made a very good friend. And she kept me in mind because when a posting became available at the firm, she said to me, "Antoinette, this posting is essentially like, we're looking for for you, like the skill sets, everything, it aligns with your training to a T. Please apply."
And I love hearing that because that really came to you through networking.
Absolutely.
So get yourself out there, join this association if this is something that you're interested in.
Yes, and let your interests be known. Like, it's great to know people, but people also have to know you, and they have to learn about you so that when things come up that they feel aligns with you, they can connect with you and let you know.
So Antoinette, what type of grad student or person thrives in this role? Are they very detail oriented? Are they great communicators? Are they, analytical thinkers? Are they all of the above? What do you think? How would you kind of prototype somebody who thrives in the role of intellectual property?
I think all the things you mentioned, Pam, like, they have to be extremely detailed oriented. As you can imagine, we're working with the legal document, and words truly do matter in this field. So a misplaced word or a comma can actually cost a client millions if we're not careful. So someone who's very detailed oriented, an important skill set to have. Also, someone who is deadline driven. As you know, like, in the patent world, we have a first to file system. So unlike graduate school, where you kind of have a long runway to your project, you kind of, like, okay, I'm investigating this. Sometimes there are twists and turns, but it's a very long runway ahead of you. But in the IP world or in the patent side, we have very specific set deadlines, and we have to adhere to them. Like, there's absolutely no negotiations when it comes to that. So someone who can be deadline driven and also well organized tends to do really well in the role. And obviously, like, communication, hands down. Oral communication and written communication. As I said before, being able to translate being able to translate complex information into simple yet accurate things for non-technical audience. Like, that's extremely important in this field.
Okay, and I'm curious about what your day-to-day looks like. Like, can you walk me, and I know the answer for every guest is no day is the same. Can you walk us through a collection of days? Like, what does your typical week look like? What kinds of things would you be doing?
Yeah, so I obviously start off my day looking at emails and making sure, like, I'm aware of deadlines that are coming up for me for the day, for the week, for the month, just a look ahead. So essentially, we have communications that we receive from the patent office. They're called office actions. And I start off my day with those. So I look at the office actions. They'll oftentimes when we submit a patent application, an examiner may come back and say, oh, well, they have concerns about certain things with the application. Sometimes it could be the language or the words that we use in our claims. They may find it to be unclear. So yeah, you're essentially a good part of my day is spent responding to office actions. I also communicate with clients, so answering patent-specific questions that they may have concerning Canadian patent practice. So we work a lot with foreign associates, and so they may have specific questions about Canadian practice that we help them with. I also learn. I mean, we haven't talked about this yet, but part of being to become an agent, you have to train, you have to learn, and you have to write an exam. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
And so part of my time is actually learning quite a lot. The firm does a great job of providing structured training for us, so I can learn, the legal aspect of the job, and also keep up to date on the technical side. So yeah.
So thank you for bringing that up, because that was my next question. This seems to me like you would need a lot of training. I mean, essentially, you're like a pseudo lawyer. So in lieu of going to law school, which you don't necessarily have to be if you are an intellectual property agent, if I'm understanding correctly,
Absolutely.
you can come in with your PhD and go through the internship program, but you do need credentialing. So can you walk us through the actual training that you require? Do you do that on the job? Could you do that in advance of getting a job? Or, what would you recommend in that situation?
So currently, to become a licensed patent agent in Canada, you have to go through our regulatory, or I should say, a college, the Canadian Canadian Patent and Trademark Agent. That's what they're called. They're our regulatory body.
Yeah.
And essentially what you need to do first is you start off as a patent agent trainee or patent agent in training. And what you do is you're working under the supervision of a licensed Canadian patent agent. And before, you had to do this for a minimum of 2 years in order to qualify to write the exams. Currently, you just need to train under a registered agent for 1 year. And after 1 year, you become eligible to qualify or to write the qualifying exams to become an agent. So this qualifying exams consists of 2 components. The first part is what we call the knowledge exam. So it's essentially a multiple choice based exam, about 3 hours long, 3 to 4 hours long. And once you pass that, then you're eligible to then write the skills exam. And the skills exam consists of 2 parts, each part consisting of 2 components. So essentially you're writing 4 papers, and they're testing you on your ability to draft patent applications, your ability to provide strategic advice, your ability to know and understand seminal case law. So once you pass that, then you're eligible to practice independently.
So now that you've gone through, I assume you've gone through that training or in the process of going through that training, is there anything that kind of surprised you in that training where you're like, oh gosh, I didn't expect IP patenting to be like this, and I'm not so sure about this? Or was it the opposite, where you're like, this is fascinating and this is something that really excites me? So was there any kind of revelation during your formal education in IP that surprised you?
Yes, the first part is just the legal language, learning how to understand that. I think there's a very steep learning curve when it comes to training in IP. I'm not going to lie. There's a ton of data, a ton of provisions and rules that you have to become familiar with. And so that took time, and learning how to read case law. I didn't go to
Yeah,
law school.
this is not covered in your IMS subjects.
No, absolutely. Now, so learning how to read case law and understand decisions and how that informs our practice was something that it takes a lot of work. And I'm still learning every day. One thing that I will say that caught me off guard, and it's more so about the culture of law firm that I wasn't aware of before, and that is being able to account for your time in 6-minute intervals or increments.
So you have the egg timer going on your on your desk all the
Absolutely.
time.
Yes, everything that you do, we call it billable hours. So
Yes.
you need to be able to account for your time. That's how we, you know,
Compensate
charge our
yourself. Yeah.
exactly charge our clients. So it's just for me, it was completely different because I was like, oh wow, now I have to make sure like capturing what am I doing like every single day. I need to be able to account for that time, like, and so that was different.
Wow, yeah, that is a big culture change from the lab where, you know, you may be juggling 3 or 4 things at the same time, and you are ultimately accountable in lab meeting or presentations, things, but you don't have to account for every minute of your day, which you would have to do in your current role.
Yeah.
So it kind of brings me to, you know, what do you like most about your job?
Ooh. You know what? Okay. So initially, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm trading the bench for a desk. And am I really going to love this? You know, leaving the world of discovery. Okay, I sort of felt initially that I had let my PhD supervisor down because here I was with all of my training in academia, and I was leaving it for a world where I wouldn't be behind the bench.
Yeah.
But what I discovered is that I'm still in that world, just a different side of it. So
Absolutely.
I learn about cutting edge research and discoveries that are coming out daily, like every day, like before it gets out into the public, I get exposed to that. So I feel like I'm still in that world. It's just a different angle. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a theme that often comes up with our guests that I think when we are doing our PhDs, we are led to believe that we are good for one thing. And then this is the point of this podcast. Every guest has exercised what they've taken, the lessons they have learned, the way they've shaped their thinking, their way of being in the world, and they've leveraged that into incredible things. You can take the scientist out of the lab, but you don't take the lab out of the scientist, meaning you are a scientist wherever you go because it's that curiosity, answering questions, wanting to delve in more information in whatever area you're exercising that. That's ultimately being a scientist. So you don't need a wet lab to be a scientist.
No.
You're a scientist wherever you go.
Absolutely.
So I don't feel like we should be thinking of it as letting anyone down. You are celebrating what you've learned in your degree by
Yes.
applying it in such a unique and important way.
Yes.
And something that speaks to you, you know? So what is the worst part of your job? Like, what is the thing that you like the least?
Ooh.
Is there anything you dislike? There's always parts of jobs that people don't like, but what would yours be?
Yeah, I think with any job, like there are certain aspects that may not fit your personality, which may make it challenging. Probably the administrative side of it.
That's what everyone will say.
Okay, yeah.
Who likes admin? I mean, I'm sure there's some people out there that do, but yeah, administration is a burden.
It is a lot. And also I think just like I said, we're very deadline driven. So at times it can feel like a lot. But I also love that. The very thing that I may find challenging or dislike is also the very thing that I enjoy and love about the role. So we have very specific deadlines, non-negotiable that I need to meet. And sometimes it can feel a little bit stressful, but it helps to keep things moving. It helps me focus. So I still enjoy that part.
Yeah, and isn't that true that often what you dislike has a component to what you like the most and maybe what you need as well?
Yeah.
Can we just unpack the actual practice of intellectual property now? You mentioned copyright, trademark, and patenting. Can you run through essentially what the difference is between the three of them?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. So Patents is essentially you are protecting your invention, like how it works or how it could be used. Trademarks is when you're looking at protecting your brand or your marks. So, I mean, a great example is Apple, the Apple logo. That is something that they can protect through trademarks. Copyright is when you're protecting your authorship. So when you're looking at paintings or music or literature, that is like the protection that you get through trademarks. I mean, through copyrights. And what else? There's design, which is how something looks. You can also protect that.
Wow.
There are trade secrets. Yeah, so like the great example would be like Coca-Cola and their
Their formula,
formulation.
yeah.
Exactly. So there are different forms of IP, but the one that I deal with are mainly patents, also just because of my background. Yeah.
How do you know when you need to protect? Like, I'm thinking just in my own world, I'm creating curriculum. I've never copyrighted a course syllabus. Even though it's new, it's unique, I don't think there's one like it at the university. Should I be protecting my copyright in that case? Or when do you know when you need to reach out to an intellectual property agent?
Yeah, I think, okay, so disclaimer, because I'm not in the copyright field,
Thank you.
but I'm pretty sure that with your copyright, it is something that you have with your work. I believe you don't necessarily have to apply for copyright protection, but it's something that you get through your written works. Don't quote me on this. I'd
Yeah.
have to fact check that.
Yeah, okay.
But how do you know if you have something that is worth protecting? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think,
I mean, it's kind of obvious when you have a novel scientific biomarker or some device that you've created that hasn't been there before. Those are kind of obvious. You want to protect because you've invested so much money and time.
yeah.
But those small, like I'd hate to say smaller things, but those less obvious things, how do you know when to protect?
Yeah, and I think really it really starts off with if you think you have an idea, and you haven't yet disclosed that idea, and you think that there might be something there, meaning that it's new and it's useful and it's unobvious. It's great to first go to your tech transfer office. Every university has a tech transfer office. Speak to somebody about it, and they can actually help you, guide you through. So they may be able to help you say, okay, do we think that this is actually inventive? So if they find that it is, they will actually usher you through the process, getting you in touch with a patent agent who can help you start off the process of protecting your invention.
And is that like at U of T, is that kind of what Mars is set up to do? Was that the vision to really integrate into the university and encourage all of the research that's going on to start thinking with the lens of commercialization? Because I think researchers don't necessarily do it to commercialize, although that's probably a debate we could have, whether or not that's changed over the last 5 to 10 years. I feel like there's been a movement to start looking at your research with the lens of commercialization. And even with the funding agencies, start thinking about how we can commercialize this and how this can be something that we can use to the benefit of our economy.
Yeah, I think when I started off my master's, I was based in the Mars Tower, and I think they did a great job early on in instilling in us, like looking for ways to make our findings or research applicable or perhaps commercializable. And they ran a lot of programs. Like I remember taking IMS also offered modules through the Mars innovation, where you learn about patenting and commercializing your work, and just different things that are sort of outside of your technical work, but it gets you thinking about the business aspect of it. Like, okay, how can I make this useful? Because we are using, as you said, public funds for our work, and perhaps like how can we bring this back into the general public.
So when you were doing your master's in biochem and you had this I think I remember it was an antibody that you were walking through that intellectual property process. How embedded did you get into that? Like, were you ultimately on the patent? Did you help create that patent? Can you get a little more granular about what that whole process looked like? And it clearly influenced you, so I imagine it would have been a very involved process for you. You weren't just tangentially involved, you were intimately involved in that process.
Yeah, and again, like as I said before, it was a foreign world to me. I didn't know that you do this, right? Okay, so I obviously I did the work. My PhD supervisor or my master's supervisor, he was very intimately familiar with the process because he had
Multiple patents?
yes.
Wow, okay. Yeah.
So our first step, again, you go to the tech transfer office and they thought that we had something. So what I had to do as a student was first like draft or write a manuscript. And we were looking to publish anyways, but we were forewarned before you disclose this, it's probably better that we submit a provisional, which is essentially where you put together, I'd say a manuscript, for example, describing what it is that you found and how it works, and you submit it. We submitted it to the USPTO, and essentially it's like putting your stake in the ground. So we get, it's like a flag where we say, okay, so on this particular date, we're disclosing our invention. We have about a year from that date to formalize the application. So I got all my data together, any new information, any new data that we had collected from the time we submitted the initial provision, we added to the application, and then it's formalized within a year's time. And then from there, it's ushered into examination where you just kind of go back and forth with the patent office. So we had an agent that was assisting us. So if she received an office action and they said, okay, we don't understand exactly, how is this, the residues that you were targeting, how is that different from this particular disclosure this publication of this antibody that has similar residues that can also stop this protein from misfolding.
Wow, so you get down to that level.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very similar to what you're doing as a researcher. Like you're reading publications, but here the examiner is just looking at what's out there in the world, in the field, and they're like, okay, we found all of these publications that we think is quite similar to what you found. And we're like, well, no, it's not exactly the same as ours. And we kind of go back and forth trying to explain to the examiner what makes ours distinct from what's out there.
So do you think that experience that you had in your master's kind of elevated you in terms of the application for an internship program after, and your friend that recommended you for the position, she knew you had that experience? Yeah. Do you think that gave you a leg up, or can students just come completely fresh without any history or involvement in the IP process and apply for these internships?
Yeah, I believe that it did help me, but it's not necessary, Pam, to be quite frank. I think having the technical background is almost like one step in. Mm-hmm. So do you have a general understanding of patents? You have the technical expertise. Law firms will teach you the legal aspect of the job. So you come in, so long as you have your scientific acumen, I think that's essentially like sufficient. The rest of the things you will learn on the job, and they train you really well.
I guess what I'm getting at is what gives you a leg up? So there must be dozens, if not hundreds, of people applying for these internships. So what are they looking for? Are they, how do they distinguish who their candidates are going to be?
That's a great point. Okay, so when I applied, yes, it's very competitive, and I set my resume out essentially to the T to what they were looking for. So I highlighted that I had TA'd, I had taught also. I taught current topics in biochemistry at a particular university. I highlighted my patent that I had, so I had some familiarity with the field. I highlighted also just my PhD and my MSc training and my areas of research. So all of this, I think, made me stand out because I had the technical knowledge, and I also showed them that I could write and communicate science. And I don't think many people had what I had when I had applied. So that set me out. So if you're TAing, if you've done poster competitions that you've won, um, oral presentations at conferences, manuscripts that you've published, all of these are things that we look for in academia, and law firms also look at this.
So you've been away from INS about 5 years since you've graduated. So what would you tell yourself, knowing everything that you know now, what would you tell yourself as that graduate student in IMS that you might have changed what you've done? It sounds like you've done everything pretty seamlessly, but knowing what you know now, would you have changed anything in your route, your trajectory? I think you alluded to the fact that you would have started earlier. So could you give advice to your IMS self
Yeah.
right now if you were wanting to have a career in IP?
Oh. So advice to my younger IMS self.
Yes. Meaning all the graduate students now that are maybe toying with this idea, what would you say? Like you would say, start networking now, start reaching out to the association that you mentioned. So for students that are scratching at the IP industry and maybe interested in dipping their toes, give them some advice.
I would tell them, take some time away from the bench to get to know people in this world. And you can do that by connecting through LinkedIn with these people. You can do that by signing up for IPIC, like I had mentioned earlier.
And can you remind what IPIC stands for?
Oh, the Intellectual Property Institute of Canada.
Thank you.
So they have great programming that allows students to get to know agents or professionals in the field, and they also guide you. Like
Right.
they're IPIC, I think they're trying to actually make the field more accessible. A mentor of mine always says, patent agency is one of the best kept secrets. It's so good, but we don't want to keep it a secret. We want others to get to know about it and to join us. And I think if you're someone doing your PhD or master's in IMS, get out there and speak to someone like myself, a partner at a firm, join these go to these networking events and just learn about the field. And I'll also say to, I guess, my younger self, or those that are at the tail end of their studies, like, it's okay to experience self-doubt, because I think I experienced a lot of uncertainty during the tail end. I wasn't sure where I was going to land. And I think I would just tell myself, like, don't let that doubt stop you. Take time to still go out there, put yourself out there and learn. And you'll be surprised, like, the people that you find and the things that you learn.
And I think it's okay to feel a little bit lost or to feel overwhelmed. Sometimes students are a little lost because they don't know what the options are. The other side of that is there's so many options. How do they know which to go into? And I think the answer to that is always speak to people and listen to your gut. If you speak with an intellectual, somebody in IP, and it resonates, you're going to feel that. So kind of delve in a little bit more, get involved in the society, and follow that gut feeling.
Yes, absolutely. And also, I was going to say there are other ways to get into IP, or I guess patent. So the other way that I guess people don't really speak about is looking at the federal government. So they hire patent examiners, and patent examiners are individuals who have specialized training, just like you and I. So they have PhDs, they have masters in engineering, chemistry, biochem. So that's also another way to get into that world, to gain experience. And you can pivot to the private side if you wish, or stay in public office if you choose. But that's also another angle that you may come in.
And is that on the government website, federal government website, or how would students learn more about those opportunities?
Yeah, you can just Google it. So
Federal,
Canadian Intellectual Property Office, patent examiners, they usually have various calls. So I remember when I was looking into it, there was a call for biotech examiners. It cycles. So just, yeah, check the website, Google.
And you don't need that formal training that you were talking about. You just need a scientific training for that.
That's
what a
right.
great opportunity. That's a great way to get in and just get another glimpse. I'm wondering if graduate students could do that while they are graduate students.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a fabulous
can.
opportunity. All right. Thank you for that. So we always wrap up our podcasts with a little fun thing. I would like you to just, in a minute, and I will look at my watch and try to time you, in 1 minute, just pitch a career in IP. You know, why should students pursue this? You can start anytime. Go.
Okay, so are you someone that is interested in learning about cutting world technology that's coming out? Are you someone that's detailed oriented? Are you someone that is really gung-ho about helping innovators protect their inventions? Are you someone that is also technically sound? If so, I think this world or this particular field, patent agency would be perfect for you. You're essentially using your technical expertise, your scientific training, marrying that with legal aspects of the job to help innovators protect their invention. So I would definitely say if you have all those qualities that I've mentioned, this is the role for you. And yeah, check it out.
Nice. 5 seconds left. Wow.
Okay.
Impressive, Antoinette. I can't thank you enough for coming today with us. It's great to see you again. I know you and I knew each other during your PhD, and it really warms my heart that you're in such a great place. You've successfully launched into a wonderful, stimulating, and fulfilling career. It's more of a vocation than a career, it sounds like. And I'm so grateful that you came and shared your knowledge and your experiences with us today and helped so many grad students on the way.
Thank you, Pam. This has been an incredibly fun experience. A big shout out to your team, really nice folks. And I had a great time here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.